Hey everybody, it's me, Jackie again, and I'm here to interview another alpha. This is Pam, and Pam, I'm gonna let you go ahead and introduce yourself and just start telling your story or anything that you want to say, and then I might stop you along the way and ask a few questions. Otherwise, I might wait till you're done and then maybe ask you. So just feel free to tell us anything.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is Pam, and I was diagnosed at 18 months old, 52 now. So, it's been about 50 years. I was the first baby or person at Boston, I think it was called Boston Women's Hospital, but it's Boston Children's today, to be diagnosed. So, of course, they were really excited because they had all these people that were researching things, and now they had something new to research. When I was diagnosed, I don't know what was told to my parents because I don't even know what was around or known at the time. They told my parents that I did have this rare genetic disease, and they gave them the name of the disease, and it was, 100 characters long and took up the whole page of paper.
Right.
So my mom, being a registered nurse, went full gamut into it and started looking into it. They told her that by the time I was 18, I'd be on oxygen, and I probably would not have a long lifespan. Every year celebrated for obvious reasons.
Right.
Fast forward, and like I said, today I'm 52, and I so far am asymptomatic,
Yeah.
to the point that my mom was my advocate all her life, all my life, until she passed about 15 years ago. Alpha
Sorry.
1 is one of those things that, if you don't have any symptoms and you don't have an advocate actively pushing you to get pulmonary function tests and all these good things that she made me do on a, I don't know, every decade or so a basis, it all goes to the wayside. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, because it had been so long since I had been tested, treated, anything, I had to fight to get my COVID shots because they didn't have any record, at least anything on file currently. So I had to go back and forth and talk to the doctor, explain everything that happened. Once she believed me, I was able to get the COVID shots, and it was a harsh realization for me that denying things doesn't make things go away. So,
Darn it.
yeah. So I started looking into the Facebook groups that my mom had joined, tail between my legs, joined them myself, and just kind of stayed in the background for a long time. And it's just been in the last 3 or 4 months that I started joining a couple of, well, one support group here locally in my area in Northern California. And I actually made a friend down in Southern California who kind of took the bull by the horns, me being the bull, and said, you need to go in, you need to get retested because you don't know your numbers, you don't know where you stand. The only information I have is that I was supposed to be on oxygen a long time ago, and by the grace of God, I so far am not. Kind of coming around to that realization, I ordered a test, so waiting for that to come in. In the meantime, my stubborn personality has decided that since I got a knee replacement at 45. And since I can do some exercise again, I am now actively walking marathons. I'm doing running Ks, and I go and do a boot camp every morning because I can. That's pretty much the primary reason. That and the fact that, I don't want to be that person that needs more help than not when I get older. But yeah, so I'm doing everything I possibly can and probably more than I should, but why not while I can?
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Now that you say that, you are where you can. I think back to when I was younger and could have done the stuff, that I can't now, and think I wish I would have done more of it, like played more with my kids. I was always so busy and working two jobs, and I always think, gosh, I wish if I could go back, you could always go back, right.
Oh, yeah.
With your mom passing 15 years ago, sorry to hear about your loss.
Yeah.
Did
Thank you.
she have problems? Is that what she passed from, was alpha 1 or from symptoms from that?
No, she actually, well, towards the end, we lost her for cancer, But towards the end, she started getting COPD. Her brother, they were estranged, but we do know that he was on oxygen late in the life, and he was a and didn't want people to see him, according to what my cousin said, didn't want people to see him struggling for breath. So my assumption is that my uncle had it unbeknownst to the rest of us. Everybody else in my family are all carriers. Carriers being
We
that
hate that
everybody.
term. Yes, we hate
Yeah,
that term.
and that was the other thing I was gonna say is I'm the only one that got the lucky ZZ gene. So yay me.
Yeah.
I have two brothers that are both MZs. And so, we did the responsible thing when I got married. We went down and we got genetic testing done. My husband was an MM. So we knew that he didn't have it. So we were safe because, again, still at the time, we thought MZ was only a carrier. Like I said, I've just recently gotten really more aware. So I now know that all three of my kids that are MZ need to be tested. One has been tested and she tested, of course, as an MZ, but she tested within normal range. So one down. I got my other daughter just sent in her test. So we're waiting and hoping for the best. And my son, when he starts to listen and decides to realize that things need to happen, he'll
Right.
test as well.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes that realization maybe to start having problems or something before people start, getting
For sure.
interested or think they should be starting to get interested or whatever. I
It
was like you. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say it's a disease because it's one of those that you can't see until you can. And
Right.
so for me, because I'm not on oxygen, because I am doing the stuff, I'm doing all the things, they look at me and think that it's just one of those things. My mom has this funky disease that someday will get her, but something else will probably get her beforehand, which maybe, but knowledge is power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wish my grandkids probably know more than my kids. I will say that my youngest son knows a lot because he helped me. He was 10 when I was diagnosed, and he helped me a lot and helped me like when I started the support group, he helped me, carry my stuff in and do everything and heard a lot from going to the conference and stuff with me where my older kids, they know some and they know what, my lungs are bad, but just to know, I think like you say, hopefully I hope to God they never have any problems, but that's when they'll, I think, learn more is
Yeah.
when and if they have problems, which I pray to God they don't. But
Yeah. It's easy to ignore it.
I was going to go back to you said you're diagnosed so young. That's amazing. At 50, what, just like 52, look at, I forgot already. And to be diagnosed that young, that's amazing. I mean, just, to be one of the ones, I wonder, I was thinking as you were telling me this, how has it been like all these years, just knowing that you have that back there, that's in the back of your head. Is that back in your head the whole time? Or did you know at a young age what possibly your future could be, or did anything like that?
Yeah, my mom she was very open and honest with me. So from the time I was old enough to understand, I knew what it was. I knew that I had it. I knew that it meant that I shouldn't smoke, I shouldn't drink, I shouldn't do drugs, all the stuff. I knew all of those things. I also knew that I was very stubborn and nobody told me what to do, but, live and learn.
Right. Exactly.
I was smart enough to back off when I did. So, hopefully it worked out better than it did bad. But yeah, she was really good about being very upfront with me. And when we first came to California, she searched out Alpha One doctors, and the only one she was able to find, I believe, was in Stanford. I remember specifically going to an Alpha One doctor in the Stanford area and them talking to her about making sure that we live in the right area, making sure that we have HEPA filters and all kinds of preventative things. And so she was really on top of it. And the doctor at times would say, okay, well, let's go talk in my office and she can stay in the playroom or whatever. And my mom was very adamant. She said, no,
Good.
this is hers. This is her deal. She needs to be aware. So I've always been very aware. Unfortunately, I also was very much a denier. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I often wonder because I remember like when I was first diagnosed, and you have that kind of, I mean, kind of like a mourning, like mourning the loss of things that you've had, which I kind of had that beforehand, not knowing I had it because I was, you know, 36% lung function back then, 15 years ago, when I was diagnosed. But I go back and think, I just remember thinking, like, for the longest time when I was learning more about Alpha 1, thinking, oh my God, I am so sick of the word. If I hear Alpha 1 one more time, I just want to puke. But I mean, the more I learn, the more I know, the better I get, I've gotten. But I wonder how I would have been. I mean, hopefully I would have never smoked, if I would have known back all those years. And I think that's the one good thing I try to tell my family members when they ask, what do I need to know for as long as I don't do those things? Michael, you should still know, but like my brother, he's one of them, he's like, I don't care to know. I'm like, what about your kids and your grandkids? Like you said before, we can't tell them until they're, ready or whatever. So I often wonder, sorry, my brain works so bad. To go back to where I was saying, I wonder how I would be knowing that, if that was such, like having that in the back of your mind all those years, thinking, oh gosh, So it's just interesting to know that you've been diagnosed that long and, known.
Yeah, it's looking back at it, it was a blessing and a curse because knowing it as a teenager, at least I was aware and educated enough to be aware of it. And I don't know. I probably didn't do some things that were probably the right things to not do. But at the same time, like I said, when my friend handed me a cigarette, right away, nobody's going to tell me what to do. And, stubborn teenager. So luckily it never hit me too hard for too long. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I wish I wouldn't listen to my friends too, because I sure listen to them. And I shouldn't say that. I mean, I'm the one that put the cigarette in my mouth. They didn't put it in my mouth. But, when you're young and think you're cool and doing the cool thing.
And indestructible.
Right? And you think you have so much time. That's why I remember even not even thinking about the Alpha 1 when I was younger. And you hear about, it causes emphysema or COPD, whatever. I remember thinking, I have plenty of time. I'm young. I have plenty of time, you think.
Yeah, and then you think about it.
Time goes by so fast.
When I'm old.
Right, and time goes by so fast. I can't believe how fast the time has gone.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Yeah. Now I forgot. You see my squirrel brain. I always call myself squirrel because I always think of something else, and then my brain goes somewhere else. I guess I think what I've kind of been asking everybody else is there any good advice that you'd have for anybody that's just now diagnosed, or any good tips or anything that you'd have for somebody who's maybe just recently diagnosed, or don't have to be recently diagnosed, just anybody, I guess.
I feel like I kind of feel like I have imposter syndrome with it because I'm not symptomatic right now. So right away, and I'm very much an advocate in my world, so right away, my thing is, go buy a t-shirt, go get the conversation rolling, because even if you're not symptomatic, even if you're just recently diagnosed, getting that conversation rolling, because when you get to the point where you are pulling up in a handicap spot and nobody sees anything's wrong with you,
Yeah.
then at least, if nothing else, maybe you'll stop one person from asking stupid questions.
Right.
Maybe you'll be able to teach one person just something. Maybe you'll be able to keep that cigarette out of one person's mouth. I mean, I'm very much an advocate on all the important stuff in my world, in my life. And like I said, I have imposter syndrome for part of it, but I also, as often as I can, I try to talk about it without shoving it down people's throat.
Yeah. That's
Talk
great.
about it.
That reminds me about when I first got oxygen, before I parked in the handicap, before I got my oxygen, I just remember people looking at me like, what are you, I was 39 years old when I was diagnosed. So I know people were looking at me like, what do you need to park there for,
Yeah.
And I remember thinking when I got my oxygen, I remember thinking in my head, at least people will know now. I mean, they can see the oxygen. They don't have to question. But the sad thing is there's so many diseases and things out there that aren't visible. We can't see.
Sure.
That happened to me too. I mean, sorry, I was just thinking about just recently last year, I parked in a handicapped, and the guy came and he was behind me and couldn't see me. He could just see me from behind. He says, oh, ma'am, you can't park there. And I turned around with my oxygen. He's like, never mind, I'm sorry. And the thing is, people don't think about, maybe today I can walk in there and I'd love to park out there. But by the time I get done in the store, I need to be parked there. I
Yeah.
would love to walk, and I love that extra walk. But sometimes when you're coming out of the store or wherever you're leaving, you need that. That remind me. Sorry, there goes my squirrel brain again.
No, I think those kind of things are important for people to hear. And I think it's important to talk about because we need to stop the judging.
Right.
I've got a friend who, because of COVID, has only very limited lung capacity. And he runs into that same problem on a regular basis. He wears oxygen only at night. But
Yeah.
during the day, he does get winded and so forth. So he does have a handicap parking,
Yeah.
and I think that we need to stop judging and just accept.
Right.
And if
And
you're
go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, and if you're one of those, bad guys, so to speak, that use the handicap parking when you shouldn't, you'll be caught.
Right. Right. And that's kind of the same thing you're going to say. If someone's parking there and if it's not affecting you, don't worry about it. Like you said, it'll be taken care of. It don't
Yep.
need to be by you. You don't have to say something you don't know. Well, anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Just get educated. It's your life, it's your world, and nobody's more important to you than you. So make sure that you know what you're facing, so that you go into it knowing. And I say that tongue in cheek because I'm still working on that, but it's a
I think
process.
we all. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much, Pam. And it was so nice to meet you finally in person. I know we see each other
You
in some of the
too.
groups, but it
Yeah.
was so great. And I appreciate it so much that you coming on and doing this. So help spreading that awareness.
Well, thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it. And I
so
really
much.
appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. I love it. I just love to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and